Hey there guys, Matthew here from Heretics Reviews and welcome to episode 5 of my best possible series, where this week I'm going to be going through all the episode 5s of New Who and as always picking my favourite to go into my best possible series. So sit back and enjoy. So then guys, time to talk about all the episode 5s of New Who, and like I said last week, quite a few of the episode 5s are the second part of a two-part story, so yes, I will be repeating myself a little bit, so I might not be talking about each episode as much because I don't want to repeat myself for the people who did see last week's episodes. But yes, we're going to begin by talking about the second half of the Slovene two-parter in Series 1, which of course was World War III. So then, like I said, might be a bit of repetition in this, but yes, World War III. Like I said last week, there's going to be a lot of like I said last week's, but yes, another great second half to this story, much more action-packed. I must say, like I said last week, the Slovene were fantastic, and there was a lot more of them in this, and it was more of an alien invasion. And yeah, the second half was a lot more thrilling with them being trapped inside Downing Street and the Slovene hunting them down. And I love the ending when they blew up a whole of 10 Downing Street. That is something iconic, blowing up where the Prime Minister lives. I bet there's a lot of people who want to do that now to David Cameron, to be honest. But yeah, they all hid in a cupboard and survived, and I wouldn't exactly call that far-fetched because I'm sure that's what people do when there's like tornadoes and stuff. I think they hide in cupboards and little small enclosed areas, stuff like that. So yeah, a very good ending to a very good story. So really, all I can really say about this is it was a great continuation from the Aliens of London. A great end to a great two-parter and a fantastic ending, not cop-out. So I've probably got to give World War III, just like last week, 7 out of 10. For Series 2, we get to talk about the first part of a two-part story, so something fresh, and this is a two-parter I absolutely love. Rise of the Cybermen was the first part of this two-part story, and it was the first time in Modern Who that we'd gone into a parallel world. Of course, we did the same in Inferno, and we all know what a success that was, what a fantastic episode that was. So as soon as Doctor Who, as soon as we knew that they were going into a parallel Earth, only good things could have came out of this episode, and it didn't disappoint whatsoever. I love the way that we got to see what life was like in a parallel universe. I love the way that Rose was a dog in a parallel universe because she's a dog in real life as well, so there was hardly any difference there, to be fair. It was nice to see what Mickey was like in a parallel universe. It was just nice to see how all the characters we begin to know and love were different in this parallel universe, and of course the Cybermen just added to this fantastic setting with John Lumick. It wasn't the Mondas Cybermen. They were Cybermen created from an industry, which a few people might think is bad, but I don't mind the Modern Who Cybermen. Well, the first models anyway. Apart from the fact that they were very, very, very robotic, and they were very loud and quite slow. So I'm glad they got an upgrade, even though they look a lot like Iron Man. But anyway, the Cybermen were great in this story. I like the little group that we met as well. And yeah, just a great setting. That's what I love. That's what intrigues me about this story more than anything. Just the parallel Earth. I just love that. And I'm so glad this was a two-parter because we got to explore it more. And the cliffhanger, even though it was a bit of a cop-out in the end, which I'll get to next week, don't worry. Yeah, the Cybermen cornering them all and about to delete them all was brilliant. So yeah, fantastic story, fantastic opener. Seeing the Cybermen taking homeless people off the streets and turning them into human beings was brilliant. And the scenes where we got to see them getting dragged into them factories and getting transformed, it was quite brutal, really. So not many faults I can really say about this two-parter. Everything was pretty much brilliant. So I'd give Rise of the Cybermen an 8 out of 10. Now on to Evolution of the Daleks, which was the second part in the Dalek story and in Series 3. And like I said last week with Daleks in Manhattan, I wasn't too fond of that episode. And exactly the same reason applies here. The Daleks did not suit the setting they were in. They didn't suit 1930s New York. And the idea of them creating a human Dalek was interesting. And I'll admit, seeing the human consciousness kind of take over the Dalek one was pretty good. But I thought the human Dalek looked pretty ridiculous. And Dalek Sec had always been the leader of the cult of Skyro, and he kind of led the Daleks, and it was probably the closest to a menacing Dalek we had in Series 2. And to see him get turned human, as much as it was a good idea, it took the menace out of the Daleks. They continually get the menace and the fierceness took out of them, and this really didn't help. As much as it was a great dynamic, seeing human Daleks and how that would affect them, I just didn't think it suited them. I mean, any other species, and I answer a comment about this later on, any other species, and make the human consciousness cross over with theirs would have worked. But I just don't think it worked well for the Daleks. It wasn't really for them, and like I said, it seemed as if they were kind of forced into Series 3 a bit. With the Master being the main story arc, the Daleks didn't really need to be there. Of course, they literally legally need to be there, but I thought they could have just been in a one-parter, or like in Series 6, make a cameo. So yeah, a bit forced, and I do believe that the Daleks could have been replaced by some other creature in the story, and they would have made it a lot better. So I'd probably give Evolution of the Daleks a 6.5 out of 10. Now, last week I spoke so well and so fondly about the Sontaran Stratagem, and I'm going to do exactly the same again. Such a consistent two-parter because it didn't get dull in the second part. It just kept going, and it was just brilliant. And again, I'm going to repeat myself, and I'm going to try not to. Like last week, the Sontarans were fantastic. Unit were fantastic, and I love the way that the Doctor, kind of, there was that little genius, I can't remember his name, but he was a really stuck-up little spoiled brat, and I like the way that he thought he was clever, and the Doctor just basically owned him with his knowledge. But it was a good ending. They got Martha back, which was nice, because Martha hadn't really been in the story that much, so it was nice to see Martha properly back. And I love the ending when the Doctor goes onto the Sontaran ship and is about to take his own life for the human race, and get to see the character development of that young kid. And I can't remember his name, and tell me in the comments what his name is. But that young kid, character development was brilliant, because in the end he realised that he'd been betrayed by the Sontarans, and all the friends that he'd made, very few friends he'd lost, and that his plans had failed, so he had nothing to live for. So he jumped in the Doctor's position and sacrificed his own life, which was quite sad in a way, but great character development for his character, and quite a powerful ending to show that once again someone has kind of jumped in front of the bullet to save the Doctor, sort of thing. So yeah, a great end to a fantastic two-parter, consistent throughout, and like last week, I can only give the Poison Sky an 8 out of 10. Again, on to the second part of a two-part story. Jesus Christ, this is going to be quite a short video. Again, the Flesh and Stone, another fantastic episode, and again it continued so very nicely from the Time of Angels, and like I said last week, the Angels were brilliant, and seeing them chasing the Doctor and everyone else through the forest was pretty good. And I like the way that they slowly were making Amy turn into stone, and she was counting, and she had to sit there and she had to wait in the forest to make her way back without seeing and without looking when the crack was getting closer towards her. I thought that was great, and I like the way that the soldiers were disappearing, into the crack and saying, "Oh, I'm going to go take a look at this," and then they just forget it completely ever happened, which was very clever, and it just showed the power of the Weeping Angels. So again, another fantastic episode and a very good ending once again. So yeah, just like the Time of Angels, the Flesh and Stone was a great continuation from the opening parter, very consistent throughout, and one of my favourite episodes of Series 5. So yeah, another thrilling episode with the Weeping Angels. I probably give Flesh and Stone a 7.5 out of 10. Now on to the Series 6 episode, which was the opening to a two-part, which was the Rebel Flesh, and a lot of people really like this episode, and I can see to some people why it's an enjoyable episode, but I don't enjoy it at all. I remember watching it the first time, and I was just not invested in the concept of people duplicating themselves, them going to war. You know, I didn't like the fact that there was a duplicate. I just didn't see what was so interesting about the story. The characters who were in it, I was not really invested in. I wasn't bothered if anything bad happened to them. And it's just a concept that I didn't really like. I wasn't too bothered about. It's just one of them episodes what I look at and I just think, I can see why people like it, but me as a person, it's just not a story that I like myself. And when the trailer came around for part 2 of it, I wasn't jumping for joy. I was just like, okay, I'll watch it, but it's not an episode that I'm really looking forward to. So the only way I can really conclude on this story, I mean, it's not awful. It's not extremely terrible. There are probably tens and tens and tens and tens of stories that are a lot worse than this, and there are tens and tens and tens of stories that are much better than this. I just think it's a forgettable two-parter because when I look at all the two-parters and all the episodes that have been, it's just one that I don't remember, one that I forget quite easily. And if I had a list of episodes, it would probably be one of the last ones I'd pick to watch. Just a concept that I didn't like, a story that I wasn't really invested in, characters I wasn't too fussed about. And I know many people would disagree, and that's your opinion, just like this is my opinion. But yeah, it's an episode that I'm not really indulged in, so I can only really rate it in the middle. I can probably give it a 5 out of 10. It wasn't outstanding, it wasn't terrible. To me, it was just forgettable. Now on to Series 7, which was The Angels Take Manhattan, the final episode of technically the longest running companions because Amy had more stories than any other companion in history, so you could say that they were the longest running companions, sort of technically. But yes, this was their final story, The Angels Take Manhattan, and of course I love an Angels episode. I adore the Angels. They are just such a clever villain, and they are my favourite for anyone who doesn't know, and this was a fantastic story. Like I said earlier on, the Daleks did not suit the 1930s Manhattan. The Angels absolutely super suited Manhattan. They were just perfect for it. Statues, back then were quite a familiar thing. It's like I didn't live back then, but of course I can imagine there being a lot of statues with the Statue of freaking Liberty, which, yeah, I don't get why they made that move in the opening credits. It's like they were basically saying, the Statue of Liberty, it's a statue. Angels episode, the Statue of Liberty, it can move as well. And I was like, well, you could have left that till later on in the episode, but you've kind of ruined it now. And then the Statue of Liberty went from being there in the opening credits to disappearing and then reappearing in exactly the same place later on. Yeah, I think that was just their way of basically saying, everyone look, the Statue of Liberty is a weeping angel. Woo! Don't know how anyone wouldn't have noticed it move, mind. I mean, it's like a massive statue in the middle of a river. Wouldn't they see it move across New? I don't know. That's a nitpick anyway. Onto the story itself. I think it was absolutely amazing. Rory was bullied really in this story. This was Moffat basically showing how much he dislikes Rory as a character because Rory was the one who was victimised and the one that was constantly sent back further and further in time. And I love the way that the story was kind of parallel to this book that was written by Melody Malone. I thought that was incredibly clever, and the way that the Doctor would not read on because he hates endings. So it was a very good episode to see a bit more of the character of the Doctor as well. River was fantastic in the story. Been quite a few times when River's been in Doctor Who and not really made of use. She's kind of been there for the sake of being there, but she played a main part in the story and she was absolutely fantastic in it. And the Angels, as always, are fantastic. And, the Angels, the only way you can keep making them interesting is if you add new things to them. And I think the baby Angels, and I can't remember the name, they had a specific name, but the baby Angels I thought were just amazing. Their evil laughs and the little pitter-patter of their feet was just very, very scary. And they were just great. I think maybe in Series 5 they lost a little bit of their scare factor, but I think they got it right back in The Angels Take Manhattan, if you ask me. And when Amy and Rory jumped off the building, wow. I mean, I did not see that coming. That is Doctor Who at its darkest. You know, they were in a position where they just realised, no, there's nothing we can do. The only way that we can at least attempt to save our lives is to take our own, which is very powerful, very sad, and the music throughout this episode, the soundtrack is out of this world. So yeah, great ending, and Moffat tried to mess with our emotions because he brought them back to life, which, yeah, mine screwed quite a lot of people, got their hopes up, and then Rory, for some reason, thought, you know what, I'm just about to walk into the TARDIS for me and Amy to survive, and he decides to walk back to a random grave, just a random grave, to look that there was a name with his name was on a grave. I mean, out of all the graves, why go back to that one? You know, oh Amy, look, there's a gravestone with the same name as me. That was his last words. So yeah, not the greatest departure for Rory, but Amy's departure was fantastic. You know, all this time she's kind of been a bit of a bitch to Rory, and you've had to kind of second guess her love for him at times. Her love showed in the end that she chose him over the Doctor, and so she should. I think that's what Rory deserved after his many, many, many deaths in Doctor Who. So yeah, a fantastic episode, had my emotions all over the place, and with the Weeping Angels, they were just captivating, and I couldn't take my eyes off the story. So The Angels Take Manhattan is probably my favourite companion send-off of the modern series so far, so I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. Although there is one very, very big plot hole that annoys me quite a bit. The excuse for the Doctor not being able to go back to see the ponds is that the TARDIS cannot go back to New York in the 1930s. What I don't get about that is, couldn't he just land in somewhere outside of New York and get a cab? Is he really that lazy? Couldn't he just walk into the 1930s, you know, park the TARDIS a few miles out and walk? You know, what's wrong with going to 1930s? It just doesn't make sense. It's just a sorry excuse for him to not see Amy and Rory again. I really don't understand that. Why couldn't he have gone to New York 1 year earlier? Or 1 month earlier? It doesn't exactly give a specific time. He could have went in 1929 and waited a year. He could have gone in 1950 and saw them as old people. Technically, the Doctor can't go to New York ever again, because Amy and Rory will be there living their life. So yeah, that's kind of screwed the idea of anyone else doing a episode in New York. So well done, Moffat. Well done. So then, to conclude my favourite episode 5 of the new series, and like I said, I knew I'd be repeating myself quite a bit in this video, so it's no real surprise that it's quite short. But yeah, we've not really had an episode to rant about today, which has been a first. There's not really been a standout episode that's been horrifically awful, but there's not really been an episode that's been out of this world either, apart from one, which is my favourite episode 5, and of course, as you've probably guessed, it is the most beautiful episode, the most gripping and thrilling, the one that I was more immersed in, and I couldn't take my eyes off for the entire length of it. It was very cleverly written, with the story being parallel to a written book. I thought that was very good. It contained my favourite villains in Doctor Who, and I think they got their scare factor back. And on top of that, it had probably one of the most emotional episodes in Doctor Who, with my emotions being pretty much all over the place. And the soundtrack was absolutely outstanding. So there's a clear winner this week. My favourite episode 5 goes to the Series 7 episode, Angels Take Manhattan. Yes, I am speaking nicely about Series 7, that's a first. But before I end this video, let's answer a couple of comments from last week's episode.
My first comment is from Craig Stratton, who said, if not the Daleks, what do you feel should have been the villain in Daleks Take Manhattan? Well, that's referring to last week when I said that one of the few problems with the Series 3 Dalek two-parter is that the Daleks just didn't suit, I think it was 1930s Manhattan. So, if not the Daleks, I don't know really. I don't think I can pinpoint an actual enemy, but that would actually work in that environment. I know the Daleks wouldn't, but the Cybermen, I don't think they wouldn't suit the environment either. I don't know. I think it would be just a newly created enemy. Maybe the Silence. They might. I don't really know, but yeah, obviously the Weeping Angels, I'd say now, but that's after seeing the Angels Take Manhattan. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what villain. It'd be interesting for you guys to actually to comment that. What villain do you think would have been better in the Daleks Take Manhattan? Comment below. But yeah, that's quite a good question. You've got me stuck on that one, but I definitely don't think it was the Daleks. I think it could either be a villain that was very dark and scary like the Weeping Angels, or the Silence, or maybe just a recreated one-off enemy. Maybe the Vashta Narada, who knows. My second comment is from Robert Lithgow, who says, don't really understand why so many people hate the Power of Three. Yeah, the ending was awful, but the actual story, revolving around the lives of the Doctor's companions and the slow invasion, was pretty strong, plus it also felt a bit RTD style, which made it pretty refreshing. It's also my favourite out of both Series 6 and 7, well that's your opinion, and I have no problem with that, but the reason why I really dislike the Power of Three is it's an episode that I think could literally... Doctor Who would not be any different without this episode happening. You know, if you wipe the Power of Three from Doctor Who mythology, nothing would change. You know, it was just, I just thought a weak villain. You know, using the cubes to give people cardiac arrest. I thought that was weak. I thought the ending was extremely weak. As I said last week, I liked the way that the Doctor was incorporated into the Pond's life. I thought that was very interesting. But apart from that, the whole story I think was just a filler. It was boring. It was forgettable, and it's an episode that I will never probably go back and watch again because it just, I don't know, Doctor Who would be exactly the same without this episode. It just seemed like it was a pointless filler, and yeah, it doesn't really make any difference to me if the Power of Three exists. My final comment is from Chaz Madison, who says, if you or James thought about doing a video counting down your favourite of the Doctor's monologues or speeches, or maybe a video counting down your favourite Murray Gold compositions in Doctor Who. Yes, that's something, a very good idea actually, that we've not thought of, because there have been plenty of times, and I'm sure there will be more in the future, where there's going to be a long gap with no Doctor Who, because Moffat just likes to give us a long gap without it. So yeah, it's hard to keep series going and keep up 3 videos a week in times like this. So we've had to really dig deep and think of serials that we can have that can keep videos up and keep you guys intrigued with no Doctor Who on air. And the reaction we've got, considering there's no Doctor Who, is quite remarkable, so we can only thank you guys a lot for that. But yeah, that's something we've not done, because we've done a lot of videos on this channel, believe me, and we've been stuck for ideas for quite a while, because there's so many things that we've done, and we're like, what have we not done? There's nothing that we haven't done. So yeah, counting down favourite monologues, that's definitely something that we'd love to do, and I really like the idea of Murray Gold. So I think after Series 8 maybe, considering he'll be remaking some new stuff for Capaldi, I think that's definitely a series me or James or both of us will do in the future. So then guys, as always, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and comment below your favourite episode 5 of New Who. Tell me what it is and why in the comments below, and I'll answer them at the end of next week's video, which will be episode 6. If you want to stay updated on the channel, guys, go to the website that's at the bottom of your screen. Best place to stay updated on everything that happens on the channel. And I'll be seeing you next on Sunday, where we're going to be doing part 2 of our live discussion here on the channel at 8 PM, don't forget. And yes, we're going to be discussing the Doctor rankings and companion rankings. Last week we discussed the episode rankings, so if you've missed that, go and find it on our channel. But yes, this week's live discussion will be part 2 of the rankings inside this issue of DWM. But until then, have a good weekend, take care, and I'll see you on Sunday night.